Well, it's that time of the week again, and it's Sunday, and time for another episode of Record Collecting with the Quill. It's been a tough week for the rock community. We lost some great musicians this week. We had Mike Howe from Metal Church, and then Joey from Slipknot, and last we had the fantastic Dusty Hill from ZZ Top, who suddenly left us without any prior notice, really, apart from him leaving the current ZZ Top tour a couple of days earlier. And I must say, even though the two other were great musicians, the one making the biggest impact on me, the loss of Dusty Hill. Has been a major influence on me since I was a really young kid. So I thought we'd do a little bit of a special episode today and do a sort of a tribute to Dusty and talk about some of his greatest tracks in the ZZ Top catalog and some other stuff. But you know the drill. Before we start, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel and also share with your friends. Well, ZZ Top is one of those bands that's been around forever. I mean, they had the same lineup for 50 years, and I think I heard them really early on. I think I mentioned before, my father had tons of cassettes when I was a kid of stuff he recorded off the radio. So I remember vividly hearing two tracks, Lagrange and Tush, and was something about those tracks that really moved me as a kid, and I can't remember. I tried to I sat down and tried to remember if I got which album I got first. Might have been actually the Best of ZZ Top album came in the early 80s, or maybe the Afterburner album from 85. I don't really know, but I know for sure that those two songs were the first one I heard, and they did something to me. I really enjoy them. And I got to see them, I think the first time was in 1991 on the Recycler tour. It was really cool. It's one of the first really big shows I saw with big production. And it was the tour when they had the whole scrapyard on stage, and this really cool segment. I remember really well when this big crane came out and picked up Billy and Dusty and put them in this big car crusher. He lifted them up and pulled them down in his car crusher, and was smoke and lots of industrial noises and stuff. And then all of a sudden they appeared in like squared crushed cars with their heads sticking out. And then they like busted out of it with their guitars and basses and started the next track. But I remember it was really cool. As I said, I live in quite a nowhere near the biggest cities in Sweden, so I really didn't get to see any big production shows early on as a kid, but that made huge impact on me. Then we got to play with them actually in 2019 when we played the Sweden Rock Festival with the QUILL. Was kind of surreal as well, because as we finished playing, we started first, and when we went off stage they had already started their set. So as we were sitting down, like just taking a breather after our show, and then we went over to see ZZ Top play, and it was as usual super cool, and they have some fantastic songs. And I never got to meet him actually. I was hoping to get a chance to just say hi or something, but I didn't get to meet him. But we had a close encounter with Billy Gibbons in the restaurant afterwards. It was kind of funny. I don't know, it's like in the backstage area of Sweden Rock, you have this big area where you can actually get in if you buy a special sort of ticket, but then you have like a restricted area just for the musicians, and they have a small restaurant where everyone sits down and eat. And we were sitting around eating, and all of a sudden it's like super cool musicians there. You're sitting there being a little bit starstruck. You had like Dennis Dunaway from Alice Cooper and the Bouchard brothers from Blue Oyster Cult, and Candlemass was sitting next to us as well. But everything stops when Billy Gibbons enters the restaurant in pajama pants and a pink cell phone, and he actually sits down at the table opposite to us, and he gets like harassed almost immediately. But we sit down, we're actually eating after our show, and after we're finished and he's finished, he's sitting there with some assistant and a couple of friends, I believe. And I get eye contact with Billy's sort of personal assistant, and like make a motion. Is it okay if I take a photo? And he like, no, he's sitting with his friends. So I never got the opportunity to do so, and I didn't want to invade his privacy, but it was really cool nonetheless to see him. He's a super cool guy. But we're not talking about Billy, we're talking about Dusty now. And as I said, he was a major part of the ZZ Top, the band. Both his, I mean, the bass playing is fantastic, but also I think he's sort of forgotten as a vocalist. He sang some really cool songs in the ZZ Top catalog, and especially in the early days, they did a lot of interplays between Billy and Dusty. I think it was really cool. So I picked out a couple of my favorite Billy Dusty tracks, for heaven's sake. Get your shit together, Roger. So I thought I'd mention them and go through them and what makes them special to me. And I will be going in order of the album, in order of the albums being made. So starting out with the first one, and here we have a great track called "Going Down to Mexico," which Dusty sings, and it's kind of like the earlier ZZ Top tracks. It kind of starts kind of mellow and just like drifting away, really cool, and Dusty is almost telling a story here in the lyrics, sort of a story to I don't know, some sort of a B movie set in the Mexican desert. It's like really good at that, and his distinct voice as well. And it's just drifting along nicely, that track. But then all of a sudden it makes a U-turn and it gets really busy with some really cool interplay between the bass and the guitar and the drums as well. Kind of a forgotten classic, Going Down to Mexico, but super cool nonetheless. Check it out. It's from the ZZ Top's first album. Love this one. Some great tracks in general. My next pick was so good even Motorhead realized it. It's from this one, Tres Hombres, probably the most famous one. The Beer Drinkers and Hell Races track. As I said, it was so good even Motorhead covered it pretty early on in their career. And this is, as I said, another of those really nice instances where Billy and Dusty trade off vocals. And I sort of kind of seen some sort of link between Bachman Turner Overdrive, and that Billy has a softer voice, very much as Randy Bachman had in Bachman Turner Overdrive, and then you had the bassist in ZZ Top, you had Dusty, but in Bachman Turner Overdrive you had Fred Turner with a more high-pitched and groveled voice. And this is a really cool example of this. I really love Billy's Hellraisers. Those are really cool ad-libs in the vocals. So my second pick in honor of Dusty is Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers from the Tres Hombres album. And the next one is the one who's the most important to me and the one I've listened to the most. It's the Fandango album. It's half live and half studio for those of you who's not familiar with it. And Dusty's all over this one. I picked this actually 3 really cool Dusty tracks on this one. The first is from the live side. You have the Jailhouse Rock medley paired with Backdoor Love Affair, and I really love is the vocals. Dusty's vocals on Jailhouse Rock is so greasy, and they play with the tempo. It's going up and down all through, and then there yet again the cool interplay between Dusty and Billy in the backdoor part with the mellow down easy and them trading off vocals all the time. It was something they sort of forgot later on in their career, but it was really important in the beginning. And then of course you have Tush. Once again so cool. Motorhead borrowed the riff straight off when they recorded their No Class song, but super cool vocals from Dusty. then probably one of my absolute favorite tracks, heard it on the X with also them trading off vocals, and Frank is playing some fantastic drums on that track as well. It's super groovy, and it's sort of quintessential early ZZ Top. And this album, I've looked at it, both the back cover and the front cover, and also I remember sitting as a kid just looking at this and just being, it's amazing how much people is there. And also those photos. And actually this cover, I always wanted one of those Fender P basses, just because, or Telecaster bass really, just because of it. So a couple of years ago I actually got the opportunity to buy one. It's not an old one, but it's just because of Dusty I had to have one of these, but I will not talk about those this one anymore. That's a different program. It's bass collecting with the QUILL, but we'll not talk about it. But it shows how important it is to me. Well, next one. This one may not be my favorite ZZ Top album, the QUILL album, but there's a great track here called HiFi Mama, with Dusty doing a great, actually he's basically doing a Little Richard impression. Some great vocals from him, and probably one of my favorite tracks of this album. As I said, it's probably not the best one, but there's some cool stuff on it, but I prefer the earlier ones. But his vocals here are great, and as I said, he is most often seen as a bass player, but he did some great singing as well in his career. Next one is from this one. They turned, as they turned more and more electric and more commercial, Dusty ended up singing the more harder songs, actually, where Billy was singing the hit singles like Sharp Dressed Man and Give Me All Your Loving. He always ended up singing a couple of the harder tracks on these commercial albums. And I Got the Six from Eliminator is a great example of that, and actually a great track. And as I said, there's some fantastic rock classics on this album, so it's sort of gets forgotten, but check it out. I think it's actually, I hadn't listened to it in a while, and listened to it just today, and I was surprised how good it was actually. So I Got the Six. And the last one, my last pick, and as I said, is from the Afterburner album, and this was important to me. It's a later one, but I think it was the first one I bought when it came out as a ZZ Top fan. And there wasn't a couple of good tracks on it. I remember like the hit single Sleeping Bag and Velcro Fly, but the one I really liked was actually the last track, Delirious. It's kind of, I mean, it's the last song on the album. It's it's a track no one hardly ever mentioned, but and listen to it today, it sounds kind of dated because of the production, but once again, Dusty's singing makes it all worth listening to again, because he has this really aggressive and a lot of attitude in his singing, which I really enjoyed. And he sings another song, Can't Stop Rocking. It's kind of cool as well, but I always, for some reason, like Delirious a little bit more. So that's my last pick of the, I think it's 7 Dusty songs that I picked just to honor him. What's your take on this? What's your favorite Dusty memories, or his favorite tracks by him? Let me know in the comment section, and as usual, I put all the tracks I mentioned here in the Spotify playlist below as well. And make sure to follow us on social media. It's the QUILL Sweden. And once again, I'm gonna end this and just say thank you, Dusty, for the music. And I heard ZZ Top will continue. It will not be the same, but as they say, the show must go on. Cheers for now, and see you all again next Sunday. Bye.